a lot of people get confused sometimes on the lore. Like, I killed hundreds of these. No, canonically, in the game, you have killed exactly as much as you did on the quests. The only thing that happens within the game is how many quests that little check mark that shows that you did that, and that story happened, and you fought that one monster. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Like...
Well, we had that debate once on the Discord server. What is that? That exact thing. Some people were saying exactly that, right? Just you do the quest once. If you got the check mark, that's as many times as it counts canonically. And then I brought up, the counter argument to that is, where do the monsters that you fight in the arena come from?
World does a very good job of when you capture a monster, it's in the town. Mm-hmm. And that's where they say that's where the arena fights come from.
Right.
So World actually explains that, yes.
Yes.
But not all the way, because you didn't necessarily capture it on the story quest all the time.
Right.
You could have done it outside. Right. So I would say in World, it is a bit of they try to explain it, but it's probably a mix, honestly.
Yeah. My assumption, and I don't know if this was an assumption or if this is explicitly stated in Try, the idea is that the monsters you fight in the arena are the ones that you have captured.
Yeah.
Not the ones that you've killed. And so you can repeatedly do arena quests. That's the whole point of arena. Now, canonically, do you just do the arena quest once? That doesn't make sense to me, because you would realistically be fighting them multiple times in the arena. You wouldn't just, I'm just going to fight Devil Joe once in the arena. No, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to fight him again and again for the entertainment of the city.
Yeah, and we got to understand that there's a different aspect to this too. Canonically, you're also not the only hunter.
Sure. Yeah.
So there are other hunters bringing in captured monsters.
Right.
And it's all unknown, right? Like, it's all because you only know what you've done in the game.
Right.
And eventually you end up becoming the best hunter. I think World does a wonderful job in comparison to other games explaining this. I think Rise does better too, where you're the ace hunter. You're the cream of the crop, but there are other ones of other, like, you'll see they call them like five or whatever, like something hunter. You'll see him around town. He does that. You see other, like, World does a better job than any other game in explaining that there are other people. And there are a lot of monsters. You got to understand, like, they're trying to make an ecosystem work. So, like, I don't think canonically there's just one elder dragon of each type that can't work. Right. That doesn't work as a species. Yeah. So it's a weird mix, right? Like, so I don't think, like, if you're going out and you hunt like what I did, 232 boggy, right? You're really going to cause a dent in the population because you're doing it in one area.
Yes.
But I think that's a reason why canonically you as a hunter have only done it that many times. That doesn't explain how many other people have done that.
Right.
Now, Rise is a little more iffy on who's a hunter in the village and not. They kind of make it sound like you're the one and that's it in Rise. But I don't think that certainly in Sunbreak, you're not the only one. Almost everyone's a hunter in Sunbreak.
Right.
And
that's kind of how it's been, in the base game, you are the protector of the village. That's just, that's what the story is. And then when you go into either high rank or G rank,
multiplayer,
you're in a bigger area and it's a lot of you all together. My point about the arena is this, these monsters have to come from somewhere. And do they come from the other thousands of hunters there are, or do they come from you having repeated that quest?
I don't know. It's not explained, but we do know, the only thing that we know is that they come from someone capturing them, and someone put them in there. And
right, but most people don't capture. I mean, that's another part.
I know,
of it, right?
that's,
I don't think the numbers
true.
add up if you don't count repetition of quests. If you don't count that, the numbers won't add up unless you just wave your hands and say, "Oh, well, they're NPCs doing it." And if you're if you're doing that, then you're just making it up. You may as well explain it logically by saying, "Well, I repeated the quest. That little girl who wandered into the forest and got scared by, a Nargacuga. Well, she's stupid enough to do it again. That's right. She did it again, and I'm gonna go save her ass one more time. That's reasonable to me." Because these people don't just do it once. Like the merchant, the trader, he's getting jumped by whatever creatures. He's not taking one trip and that's it. That's his business. He's always on that route back and forth, and he's always going to get jumped by the same monster. So it's not unreasonable to say canonically that it's okay to repeat quests. And then if you look at most people are not repeating most quests anyway.
No, it's certain ones. And it's definitely certain ones, and then sometimes that's the only option, right? Like if I talked about not farming, but fighting Primordial Malzeno. There's only 2 quests. There's the advanced one and the story one. And I was doing the story one because the advanced one, while I finished it, that's not what I want to be doing for crowns. So I will not be doing that for crowns. but yeah. And one of the things that I like to, I don't know, remind people, because I've had this discussion too, is while yes, it's interesting to sort of figure this stuff out, it's very clear that Capcom isn't.
Yeah.
It's very clear that they set up the scenario and they're like, done. Like this whole talk about the guild, like we talk, like they even did this thing with like Legends of the Guild, and we were all excited because like maybe we're going to find out more information about this quote unquote large organization, the guild, which the only even close that we got like any sort of like information on the larger structure of the guild was in 4 Ultimate and World. So World, the whole premise is the guild got a bunch of people together to go to the new world and do an expedition and yada yada. Like they've established this idea that the guild is some sort of like, I like to call this the Japanese anime thing, some sort of overhead organization that everyone's a part of and everyone knows about, but no one knows anything really about. That sort of like trope that's there, and that's what the guild is. I don't think Capcom is ever interested in explaining any more of what the guild is than what they have said at the time. It is just a structure to explain why people get sent the way they do and why there are quest maidens. And stuff like that. Like, but I do enjoy sort of thinking that stuff out for sure. But it's just like eventually there's a point where it's like, well, we don't have enough information because there's not going to be enough information.
Right. Well, like we were talking about, science and paleontology and stuff like that. You probably will never know, but you can make the most educated guess. You can make what makes the most sense with the information that you have. And here's another argument for quest repetition being canonical, and it's simply this: the fact that once you beat the quest and get the check mark, you can do it again.
Sure. Yeah.
Like you can do it again. So why wouldn't it be canonical? And so here's an example. Like, well, you might think, well, if Capcom's just letting you do it just as a courtesy, right? Because they don't want to lock you out of that quest. Well, that's
lock you out of doing
lock you out of doing it
it
again, right?
Yeah.
You do it once and you're not allowed to do it again. They don't want to lock you out of that. Well, they did exactly that in World. There was a whole tier of quests, story quests, that you could not repeat once you completed them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that we could do a whole episode on what it's what's canonical and what's not, but I like to play the devil's advocate on this because it's in the game. Why wouldn't if it's in the game, that
right
to me by definition is canonical.
Well, even monster parts, right? Monster parts is a good argument for that because if you lock certain quests, so not every monster is on every quest. Now, granted, that's usually reserved for elder dragons or more powerful monsters. But there are some, even lower ones, that there's only one quest for a monster. And this happens a lot in Rise, where there is exactly before in certain ranks, right? Like let's say 2-star, there is only one. Wow, I am really blanking on monster names right now. The red armadillo.
There's one Raytheon.
Yes, there's one Raytheon.
There's one Volvodon. There's
Volvodon.
This is a quest with 2 Volvodons on it. Yeah. As you progress through the game, you will hit these caps where if you want that Raytheon armor, you have to repeat that quest.
Yes, and I think that canonically, you go into these situations where that person has the armor, so they have to have done it multiple times, because it tells you in the game it requires this amount of parts, and you're not always going to get this amount of parts. I think, I don't think there's anything mathematically that can't say that you can't. No, I don't know. No, mathematically, I don't think you can get a full set of armor on one quest. I don't think you can.
No, you're not going to do that.
Even with the best of luck and you got an owl on your side and you've got good luck items, I don't think you can do that. And I had to, just to make the Primordial Malzeno greatsword and legs, just those, I had to do the quest 4 times.
Yep. It's a lot easier now than it ever has been, for sure.
Yes.
But you're not doing it on one quest. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, what if you did every quest just once, but then you fought and killed all of the monsters available to you? Not just the target, but you take the full 50 minutes and you kill or capture all of those extra monsters that show up during that 50 minutes. And then, clock's running out, you go capture the target monster and you're done. And then you only do each quest once. You do each quest only once, but you're allowed to take as many monsters from that quest as you can. Then could you build the full set of Raytheon? Maybe.
I doubt it, but you could, because it's also random. You're not guaranteed to see one. Right.
Yeah.
The extra monsters are almost always random, depending on the quest. There are some that have specific monsters come out.
There's a pool for sure. Yeah, you can look that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also we have the expeditions, right? We've had this since Try. We have the expeditions where you just go out and hunt whatever. It's very interesting because one of the things that we do talk about that Capcom has mentioned with the guild isn't there just to protect the village, but also to keep hunters in check, to keep from overhunting.
Right.
So the guild is also keeping tabs on population. So if you're authorized to go kill Great Boggy 232 times, I guess there must be enough Boggy, according to the guild.
Yep.
I just use that because that's the most extreme example that I have. I think that is literally the most monster I have hunted in a title period.
But I mean, even that can be realistic. It can be. You could have an overpopulation. That's perfectly legitimate.
And I think there's even quests that say we have an overpopulation, go get rid of a few. Especially small monsters.
Usually the small ones.